Welcome to Press Coverage. I'm Theo Gremminger. At Press Coverage, we're looking to find you the edges you need to win in fantasy football. And today I'm joined by my guy, Alan Seslowsky of RotoWire, and we are looking to win some money in the FFPC Playoff Contest. This is a really fun one. This is a contest that you can win a lot of money in. This is limited to, Alan, how many players are allowed to be in this one this year?
Oh, I mean, the 200. By the way, we're not looking to win some money. I've already spent.
We're going to win it.
I've already spent it. So if we don't win, I'm screwed. It's $500,000 the first prize, but this is a 7,500 person contest, the 200 entry, and then they have a lower stakes one, $35 entry, which is 16,000. But the one we're doing is 7,500 people.
Yeah. So this is a great contest. If you've never done it, you could do the $35 contest. If you use the code Underworld, if you're not on FFPC already, that gets you $25 off. So essentially it would be a $10 contest. We're doing the big boy one here. We're doing the $200 entry. This is one where a lot of game theory comes into play. There's a ton of these now, Alan. Like you go on Underdog, you go on DraftKings, you go on some of the competitors to FFPC. There's tons of these playoff contests now. I like this one because we don't have to go back in week 2. They actually have a secondary contest next week in week 2, but we basically have to just pick a roster, and you can't select 2 players from the same team. So this is one where we're going to end up picking 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 tight end, and this is where it gets tricky. 4 flex spots. And
is it the normal tight end rules here with the 1.5 PPR?
There you go. Yeah, so it's tight end premium scoring. So it's PPR. There's 4-point passing touchdowns for the quarterbacks, but you have the tight end premium, which means it's 1.5 points per reception. And then you have a kicker and you have a defense. So basically there's going to be a ton of information about how to win this contest, but it sort of changes every single season. Alan, when you're approaching a contest like this where you can have multiple entries, but I'm not sure how many entries you're planning on. And the field is not overwhelmingly massive. Like, how concerned do you get about being unique, about not having a lineup similar to the teams you're competing against?
First, something you said earlier is that with the set it and forget it, it's got like that NCAA bracket feel to it where I don't have to do maintenance. We've just come off the fantasy season, where we're grinding waiver wire. So I love the FFPC contest for that. But you asked a great question. There is a DFS element to it with about being unique because let's just say, that everyone's going to be on Patrick Mahomes, right? Just hypothetically. That's fine if Patrick Mahomes gets to the Super Bowl, but that means you need to have everything else correct. It's the same thing that we talk about in NCAA, Theo, where you don't want to pick necessarily a 1 seed to win it. You want to pick a 4 seed or a 5 seed, because if you pick the 1 seed, you need to have everything else correct. Whereas if you hit the 5 seed, I'm not suggesting we should have Russell Wilson as our quarterback or anything, but you remember that year that James White, the running back on New England, was 4 touchdowns in the Super Bowl? I think that we do need to have that DFS unique element to it to a point without going crazy.
Yeah, and a lot of this also comes down to the Super Bowl. So for this contest, you bring up the fact of it's set it and forget it. Set it and forget it is very cool if we hit the nuts on the Super Bowl. There are certain positions where you want to have access to a player playing several games. You also don't want to miss out on that player who's going to get eliminated, but has a massive, massive spike week. So for instance, this week, if Minnesota beats the LA Rams, but Puka Nacua has a 35-point game, then the Puka teams are still happy they used him regardless of being a one-off. So yes. I think a lot of people get sort of wrapped up in that. You also have the kicker and defense, where that's really not a whole lot of points. You almost want to pick a team that you think will get eliminated, which is sort of contrary to some people's thoughts. Maybe you'd pick a team that might overwhelm, get some sacks, maybe get a pick 6. For me, it's sort of like the kicker and defense. Does it help to get 2 games out of them? Maybe, but it would probably be at the detriment of a flex we would want to use. There was one really cool stat, though, that I wanted to share with you, and this was actually from Fantasy Points. Chris Wecht is the writer, and there's a lot of really strong information out there if you're trying to get into this one in terms of articles. But the quarterback position is the one that really stands out the most. So when you're looking at the top 150 teams, so get in the top 150, you're getting something back, Alan. Maybe it's a entry into a one of their 350s, maybe an entry into their best ball tournament. You're going to get a little bit of your money back if you get into that top 150, usually. So the quarterback position, when you look at over the last 3 years of data, the top 150 teams, the quarterback playing 2 games was 28% of the top 150. The quarterback playing 3 games was 41.1% of the top 150. And then the quarterback playing 4 games was 30.2%. And a quarterback playing 1 game had 0%, Alan. So we really don't want our quarterback to be somebody who's going to be playing only 1 game. It's
right.
contrary to it. So,
but it's not about what's likely to happen. It's about what happens if, I think, is another way to look at it. Like, for example, like, I think we have to start with who do we think is going to be in the Super Bowl? Not who's most likely, but like, who do we, who's reasonable to be in there? And for example, if you land on the Bills, Theo, right, to win the Super Bowl, like, is there some value in saying, hey, it's a James Cook 3 touchdown game and Josh Allen just has 1 passing touchdown? And so something like that, I think, is a way to differentiate while still keeping true to what could happen that's plausible instead of just picking some crazy, needle threading outcome.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of putting it. And when you're looking at the current odds, it's sort of a lot all over the place. There was sort of the Detroit was going to take a step back. Now people are back on Detroit. Yeah. But you have like the Kansas City people out there, the Buffalo people. I think, to me, this is a pretty open year for the Super Bowl. Do you have like an overwhelming lean? And I'll just say, for the listeners at home, we're recording this on Wednesday. And
it's Thursday, Theo.
Oh, excuse me, Thursday. Sorry about that. Mixing it up. The week's been too long already, Alan. On Thursday, as of Thursday morning, Lions are plus 275. Kansas City at plus 350, Baltimore plus 600, Buffalo plus 600, Philly at plus 700. Those are the teams that have like sub plus 1,000 odds. And then you get up to plus 1,600 for the Minnesota Vikings. Your initial lean for the team that's going to be in the Super Bowl, Alan?
Yeah, I actually made a crazy bet because I was just kind of trolling people when someone said who's going to be in the Super Bowl. And I just said, what if it's one of those years where you have, and I made the half joke, Tampa Bay and LA Chargers. Obviously that's a super long shot, and I'm not suggesting that's the route we go down, but I did make a $50 to win $10,000 bet that those are the 2 teams, by the way. So that's my little parlay. But yeah, who's likely to be in? And you look at the Kansas City odds and why are their odds worse than Detroit. And I don't think it's because anyone thinks that they have a worse chance if they get there. In fact, if Detroit versus Kansas City is there, Kansas City's likely to be favored, but it's that Kansas City's path is perceived as more difficult to get there because they have to play Buffalo or Baltimore or Buffalo. So if we were going to pick like who do we think is going to be there in the end, I still think my money, if smart money, would be on Philly, and I think Kansas City, but that is a little chalky. I don't know if that accomplishes what we want to do here. Who's your lean that you think is going to be there?
Honestly, I'm feeling a Buffalo or Baltimore type Super Bowl run. I just think that this is we
get to pick one. You can't both be there.
So I'll go Buffalo in this one. I think for me, I just think
side.
Yeah. So like for me, I think that that I would lean with the Detroit Lions. I think that like what we saw the last 2 games where they were able to play in that shootout environment versus San Francisco and then completely overwhelm Minnesota in a 6-day stretch. Yeah. This team is just locked in when it comes down to it. And I know they have injuries on offense, but this has just seemed to me sort of like a team of destiny this season. We believe in the coach. We believe in the offensive coordinator. And I actually believe in the defense too, where Aaron Glenn has gotten a ton out of this defense despite the injuries that he's lost. And I think in like a 1-game sample size, the guy's able to get a ton out of like a game plan. So I think I'm on Detroit.
That's who Jet fans want, by the way, for the head coach. They want Aaron Glenn.
I think, I mean, the Jets are interviewing every single person under the sun right now. It's actually insane.
Aaron Glenn would be a good one, though, right?
I think Jets fans would be lucky to get Aaron Glenn. I think he's very solid, seems very respected throughout the league. And also I hate the idea of these teams just recycling mediocrity. Like, no Jets fan out there wants Ron Rivera. And I live on Long Island. If anybody doesn't follow, like, so a lot of my friends are Jets fans. For me, my team's my fantasy team, but I like to see where the Jets win. And my son has a Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson jersey, so we'd like to see them win a couple of games.
If they're gonna pick someone like Ron Rivera, I'd rather them just go totally like disaster and take Jeff Fisher. Like, bring him back.
Rex Ryan would be the one if you want to go old school. Like, let's get Rex Ryan down there.
That's a real pick. I mean, if you want to go full disaster mode, take Jeff Fisher. But yeah, Aaron Glenn, I think, is a happy medium between like credibility. He's got history with the Jets. But here, we're here to pick some to make $500,000 on the FFPC contest. And by the way, this video works because now I'm going to be doing a couple of these on my own.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. So, like, I will do a few of these. So you have to kind of weigh it out differently. Like, I will say, if you're doing multiple contests, varying your exposure makes some sense. If you're doing one bullet, then that's great. Go do your best possible lineup. And there was a year where in the $35 contest, the overall winner maxed it out. They did 150 entries. But usually, like, and I'll give a shout out to Austin Martin, who's a friend of mine. And I compete against him in a ton of dynasty leagues, one of the better high-stakes dynasty guys out there in the FFPC streets. He took this one down a few years ago, won $250,000, and he didn't max it out. He had a number of entries, but he didn't max it out. That was a big one, and got into some ownership numbers where he ended up having Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry was a little slightly less rostered. That was a big playoff run for Henry. So this is another one. So, like, when we're talking about which team we pick for the Super Bowl, I think that's going to kind of motivate our first selection. Let's take a quick break, Alan, and we come back. Let's actually put this lineup together.
Hey, why do we partner with the FFPC? Because they have the widest variety of fantasy football formats, and it's the easiest place to find all types of fantasy football contests in the world. What if you want to play for high stakes? Well, they have a $6 million prize pool with their Fantasy Players Championship. They also have way too early best ball leagues that start in February and dynasty leagues. They have the closest thing to a liquid market for orphans that there is in all of Dynasty. And the FFPC has sponsored us for half a decade because we are actually delivering information that can help fantasy gamers, and they're generating so much interest and bringing in so many new users, casual users even. The FFPC creates a unique experience where you can both compete against the best and make money. Use promo code UNDERWORLD to get $25 off your first team. $25 off your first team at the FFPC with promo code UNDERWORLD. Go get it!
Welcome back to Press Coverage. Theo Gremminger with Alan Seslowsky. Alan, this is the first press coverage of 2025. And what a better guest to have in here than Alan Seslowsky. Big shout out to everything that you guys do over at RotoWire. I had a chance to go on with Jim Coventry and Nick Whalen last night over on Sirius. What do you have going on this month, Alan?
Oh man! By the way, highlight of the show when you came on their Nick and Jim show. No, they always enjoy having you on. RotoWire. We're just over on the RotoWire YouTube page. We'll be down doing on location content in New Orleans for the Super Bowl. Caesars is bringing us down there. It's the Caesar Dome, they call it now. We'll be staying on Radio Row and just look for like interviews, hopefully with some good players, maybe some celebs. But we'll be down there during the media week and posting all that man on the street style content.
Yeah, very cool stuff. This year I am not going, but Anand and Nanduri will be there. Maybe a couple other player profiler people. I'll be at the Senior Bowl, though, in Mobile, which I'm very much looking forward to. That should be a lot of fun, and we're going to do a lot of content with the Senior Bowl. But first, we got to win this money.
Yes.
So Alan, let's start it out. How do you want to do this? Do you want to go with our teams for this weekend? Let me ask you this. Who is a flex that absolutely you are pounding the table for, you absolutely need to have in our lineup which flex would that be?
Well, I think you hit on something really important in the last segment is who's a super stud that we expect to play one game. Let's at least just lay in some of our, like, you know, our big time guys like that. And then we could always change it around. Or do you want to just pick our kicker and defense and get it over with? So I would say, like, in the super stud, I actually think Justin Jefferson is a one and done. I don't know if you agree with that. So I would be open to him there. But, man, by the way, well, how does it work with Jalen Hurts as well? If he does not play is he playing? Has that been solved yet?
It sounds like he's playing. Jalen Hurts, all the reports are that he looks healthy and they're ready to rock. So I would anticipate that he is playing. So
so Boswell is a kicker. Do you want to throw him in there just as a starting point?
Let's come back to that one, because I don't think I think with that game, I do worry about the 9.5 point underdog. Is that the correct line this morning? About 9.5 points or something?
Yeah,
like that?
it was floating between 8 and 9.5, and you know it could get to 10. So you think that there's no way they're kicking field goals?
I almost think that Pittsburgh's the team we want to leave out entirely.
Okay,
there's going to be one team we leave out. So why don't we let's talk about, let's go game by game this weekend.
Okay, let's do it with that.
So Tampa Bay and Washington. This is one where it's like a 50-point total, correct?
Okay. Yes.
So this is one where we want to have exposure to the game. I think we want to use a Washington Commander. We want to use a Tampa Bay Buck. But we don't necessarily see either one of these teams going particularly far. Would you agree with that?
Well, I told you I already have Tampa going a couple rounds, so 2 games is going far, right? So,
yeah,
but let's start with there. So, Washington Commander. I mean, Zach Ertz coming off the mega throbber game. I mean, he might be the non-obvious tight end to put in there now. I know Terry McLaurin is a good, but do you want to burn a wide receiver spot on someone we think is playing one game?
I like using Ertz. I think the game flow is perfect for Ertz.
Yeah.
There's really no edge to using the defense, no edge to using the kicker at all. Jaden Daniels, again, we want a quarterback who's going to play multiple games. So even if Jaden puts up a big number and they're out, that wouldn't help us that much. And if Jaden played 2 games, put up a huge number in both, then you're talking. But I agree with you. I like the Bucks. I think we go Ertz. So let's get Ertz out of the way.
That seemed obvious to me. I put him in the tight end spot specifically.
Okay, so let's get Zach Ertz, old reliable, in the tight end spot. Okay. And I'll give you since we just put him in the lineup, I'm going to give you the final stats. 10 catches, 77 yards, and a touchdown. That's going to get us a lot of points there. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I had 8 for 55 yards and 2 touchdowns, but I think it's right around the same points.
So when we start talking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, there's some people out there saying that, the Marshawn Lattimore factor, Washington is going to key in. I do still think that Mike Evans is going to be the chalk play. When people could look down at the Tampa Bay in this contest, I think people are going to want to click the button on Mike Evans. Obviously, he set the record, and he's just awesome. So when you talk about a guy who could go off, I think he's fine. I will say that Bucky Irving is also extremely exciting, especially if they're going to play 2 games. I did my early top 25. I don't know if you had a chance to read that, Alan.
I did.
Coventry read it.
Yeah, not only did I read it, I actually quoted it when I was on a podcast with Chris Liss. I gave you full credit for the early 25. Yeah.
Thank you very much. But I put Bucky Irving at 21, which I think I'm going to be a little bit ahead of consensus. But I think that potentially
you're not going to be ahead of consensus. But I think that's too early for Bucky next year. But for the summer.
Well, this is a debate all summer long. But for this particular game, if you're talking about Bucky Irving in a 50-point total, and we're getting a chance to be slightly unique, and we both like him, it's Mike Evans or Bucky Irving for me.
So Jalen McMillan is not even in play for you here?
I think it's too cute.
Too cute.
I mean, I think it's I think there's something about, again, if this was a DFS GPP and we were going against, 50,000 people in 50,000 entries instead of 1,700 and change, then I think you could start going into the weeds. You could talk about the Kate Ottens. You could talk about Jalen McMillan's. But I think it's really Bucky versus Mike Evans. We can save this one too and come back.
No, let's just do them as they go, and then we can come back and comb it over. I'm cool with Bucky there. Definitely don't want Mike Evans. He had the big $3 million celebration. I feel like he's good now. He's got his 11 seasons of 1,000 yards. He's got his $3 million bonus. I just, if they're gonna do it, I think it's gonna be on the back of Bucky.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Let's go. I know it's the final game of the wild card week, but let's talk about that Minnesota game because I agree with you. I think points are going to be scored, and I think this is one where we want exposure to the game. I think there's actually multiple options. I do think that this is one where Puka Nacua, even though he's the chalk, he's good chalk. We saw what he did last year in the playoffs. I think Sean McVay is going to have the same sort of game plan. Last year, Puka Nacua set a record for the most receiving yards by a rookie ever in a playoff game. I think that the way that he's played over the second half of the year, even though it's the chalk, it's the good chalk. Now, if we want to get leverage towards the field and we want to get unique with it, then Kyren Williams might be the beneficiary where Puka has a big game, but Kyren Williams falls in the end zone twice. Your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, and just one side note about Jalen McMillan, averaged 20 fantasy points per game over the last month and change, so 5 weeks. So he's not like a too cute. I think he's a live play for anyone that wants to play McMillan, but that's fine. We moved on.
We'll agree to disagree. And he's very touchdown driven.
Nothing wrong. That's a skill.
It could happen.
Yeah.
But if I'm gonna if I'm not using Mike Evans, I want to get away from the passing game and go with Bucky.
We're in agreement. We're in agreement here. We're in agreement. Okay. Now on to the Rams. Do you think the Rams are a little bit of a sleeper? Right.
Yes.
Right. So you got Sean McVay, great coach who's been there. We all like Matt Stafford as a real life NFL quarterback. They got the bye week last week, the fake bye week where they rested their players. They didn't care that they were going to have a tougher matchup this week.
And I think I'll interrupt you. I think you nailed it. Like, this is the one where McVay rested players, even though they had they could have gotten a potentially higher seed guaranteed if they won the game. And he said he didn't care about the seed. He wants to rest his guys. So to me, that's a confident, it's a confident coach. And I think that Detroit game kind of took a lot out of Minnesota. I think that was like a revved up type environment. Now they've got to go to LA. That's a tough place to win. Darnold in the playoffs versus Stafford in the playoffs. I mean, you're talking about a guy, and the way that last year went for these Rams, where that was one of the best games of the playoffs, that Detroit game in the first round. So I will agree that I think it's LA.
It's Kyren. And I'll tell you why, because Blake Corum broke his arm. This is, what they do when it's just one back. There's no Blake Corum threat whatsoever here. Ronnie Rivers has been elevated to the number 2 running back. They are going to feed Kyren early, often. He's going to be involved in all facets of the game. Let's use him.
Okay. I'm okay with that, but I do think if I did 4 of these contests, I still think I would be happy to use Puka 3 times because I think the guy's going to smash. But for this particular one, I agree with you. Kyren will get us leverage to the field. I think this also opens us up to Justin Jefferson because I was going to talk about Jordan Addison, pivoting off of Jefferson, going with Addison. But I'm okay doing Kyren Williams. Fading Puka Nacua sucks. But again, we're trying to win the whole thing, be unique. Right. And I like your take. If we get 2 games out of Kyren Williams, potentially 3 games out of him, where he's getting this insane usage, then I'm okay with it. So,
and by the way, when we're done, we can go back and comb through this and say, hey, do we want to do a swap out Puka? But I just think as laying in our base, let's start with the Kyren vibe here, and then we'll come back if it doesn't make sense. If we have an extra running back that we like and a wide receiver we don't like, we can come back.
So I just locked in Williams and I locked in Jefferson. We can come back to those ones. Let's talk about the Houston-LA game. Your thoughts on this game, who you want exposure to in this one. For me, I sort of lean with Ladd McConkey. I think that this is an LA win. Your thoughts on the game itself and who wins the game?
Yeah, I mean, the Chargers are favored by 2 points, right? So that means they're probably about a 5-6 point favorite on neutral or at home. I think that the Chargers are the team that can actually go into Kansas City if they do win this game against Houston and beat them too, right? Just that running style, the Harbaugh, the whole thing. So I'm very bullish on the LA Chargers here. I got laughed at in a RotoWire company meeting yesterday for saying that the Chargers were going to go to the Super Bowl. They said, oh, I thought you were a sharp. You must be a dud. So, yeah, I'm with you on McConkey. That was my first thought on all the guys. He is just, this is his coming out party. This is him being locked into the second round of fantasy drafts next year when he has an 8 for 110 and a tutty.
Yeah, that was one that did not make my top 25, and he probably should have. He'd be somewhere around 30. But he's awesome. Ladd McConkey's awesome. Let's lock him in. Now let's talk about Houston, because my lean would be to use Nico Collins here, even though it's a 1-game sample. But we both are down on this team, but I think it's going to be a close enough game. You mentioned it's a 2-point spread, that using the kicker from Houston, Kaimi Fairbairn, might not be the worst play either. Your thoughts on that?
Kaimi unfair Baron. Do we have to use him? I mean, can we come back to Houston as
So
one?
let's leave this open, because I think I think there's an argument to be made on using Nico.
Right.
There's an argument being made on using Fairbairn, and we also could consider using Houston in the defensive spot, even though it's a 1-game. LA's not so overwhelming. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think it'll be a close game. Either way.
Top of head, we said Pittsburgh is a team we're not going to be using, and again, my pushback on that would be, is there leverage in using a Pittsburgh player? But I agree. But aren't you, we're not using 2 teams? There's 12 spots and there's 14 teams. Who would be the other team that you, off the top of the head, think we're not going to use other than Pittsburgh?
That's a good question. I think let's get through this and we'll kind of
Houston,
talk about it.
Houston or Green Bay might be,
it's Green Bay or Houston.
Right.
Green Bay, though, I would tend to lean towards, because the way that game went in Brazil when these two teams met, and I know people are going to say, Theo, that was basically the beginning of September, but at the same time, it was still a ton of points scored in that one. I think it could be the same way, even though it's in Philly, where I don't want to necessarily fade Green Bay. So I think completely fading Houston is not the worst idea either. Why don't we get to, let's go, which team do you want to look at next?
Well, put Nico in there, because I thought that was a sharp play, and then we'll come back.
Go Nico.
Yeah,
we'll come back to Nico.
It's good to have the placeholders.
I do think Nico's going to be the chalk, but I think it could potentially be good chalk, where he gets you the 20+ points. Even if it's a one and done, you're still feeling pretty good about things.
Okay.
Denver
Buffalo.
Buffalo. So this is one where I think, using the Denver defense, they've been such a good defense that they are going to get some sacks, even though it's a team that's going to score a ton of points on them. I think that they're going to do some things, and I don't really see another Denver Bronco that I really want to play in this one.
So maybe they're the team that
the team we fade. So It's either use them on defense or fade them.
Right. And I would say that, especially, it sounds like you're gearing up for a Josh Allen QB. I think that it just limits our upside to have the Denver defense there. Not that they're not going to score or everything you said, but those things are directly in conflict with each other. Well,
I don't know about that, because, again, Josh Allen, we're talking about a long stretch. We're saying Josh Allen to the Super Bowl. 1 game is not going to matter. If he hit, and even against a defense that challenges him a little bit in Denver, which I'm not so sure about. This is a guy that we're talking about cumulative stats when we're talking about Allen.
So let's lay Allen in as our QB first.
Yeah, let's put Allen at QB, and I don't really want to
there.
So then, if we're going Allen at QB, let's come back to Denver.
I agree. You don't want to. That's what I'm saying. You don't want to let even a few, like 1 game of like 16 points from Allen. If we think that the Denver defense is going to quiet him a little bit, that is bad, right? Like, that is bad. So we'd have to draft like we think we're right. Allen's going to push the Denver defense out of the way and have 30 points a game.
So for me, my second quarterback choice was going to be Lamar Jackson. With not using Lamar Jackson, I'm almost positive that in this field, you're going to see Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson on everyone's team.
Andrews,
right? I think there's value in Mark Andrews. So I think we use him.
Totally. That's who my Raven would be in my contest. I would love to have Andrews. He's been coming on lately too.
So let's just lock him in. We've got Mark Andrews in there. Let's talk about the Philadelphia Eagles. Let's talk about the Lions, the 2 teams that we think could both make a Super Bowl run.
Oh my God. You looking at this game log for Mark Andrews? Oh my God.
I know Mark Andrews is on fire on the second half.
It's epic.
Yeah.
Go ahead. This is a good pick.
Okay. So we, at this point, I think we are unique enough, because I think that with Kyron Williams, with Mark Andrews, and with Bucky for that matter, I think we're going to be fairly unique.
All right.
So I don't think we need to worry about getting away from chalky guys.
Okay, so let's just do the chalkiest of the chalk then, Theo. Who's our Detroit line? Is it Gibbs or is it Amon-Ra?
Gibbs.
Gibbs. Okay, good.
Gibbs.
I'm in
you
agreement.
you could twist my arm into Amon-Ra.
No. I want Gibbs.
Okay,
Gibbs.
it's got to be Gibbs. So
Yeah.
Gibbs is locked in there. Okay, so Gibbs is locked in. So we're looking at one single flex left. We could also take out Nico Collins and go with a Green Bay Packer. But let's get the Philadelphia Eagle out of the way. So everyone in the world is going to have Saquon Barkley or AJ Brown. I think they're both fine. You can make a case where one of these two guys just has this exceptional playoff run. I don't mind using AJ Brown because I think the threat of if Hurts is healthy, could be a potential game where you get a Saquon where you don't get the touchdown. Hurts gets a rushing touchdown or two. I don't mind using AJ. Your thoughts on AJ versus Saquon?
I was going to push for Saquon because what the hell did they save him for not getting the record for, right? To use him up in the playoffs. And if I'm not getting the record, I'm getting all the playoff push here. And, Jalen Hurts just coming off the concussion. Maybe the tush push is they're not going to hold back on that. But I would say Saquon is, they're locked and loaded. They're not saving Saquon for anything else. This is it.
I think that's a good way of looking at it. So when we're talking about, I think our team is pretty locked in. I think that the positions we need to do is kicker, defense, and we need to have a conversation about Nico Collins versus Josh Jacobs. And this is one where if we're trying to get leverage against the field, I think Josh Jacobs will have fewer people using him than Nico Collins teams. Your thoughts on that?
Well, you just said that you feel we're leveraged against the field no matter what at this point. So but I'm with that. I think that the Jacobs is the sharp play because CJ Stroud. The vibes are bad this year, right? You could see let's go to Houston where the score is 28-3 at the half, and CJ Stroud has 62 yards passing. One of those things. So I'm with it. Let's go Jacobs.
I will say if we go Jacobs, we are going to be so running back heavy. It's a little boomerish.
It's a good year to be running back heavy.
Okay, so let's take out Nico. Let's go with Josh Jacobs. This will give us 5 running backs. I know it's the year of the running back, but it still feels.
Lean into it. It. Yeah, I'm telling you. Again, look, if I hear you about that, it's old school, but the year is not over, right? 2024 is the year of the veteran running back. Let's just go with it. Like, why would it change today, right? All of a sudden it changes?
No, you're right about that. So then we're talking about kicker and we're talking about defense. So last chance to change any of these guys. I'm going to read our team once more for people listening on the pod. We have Josh Allen at quarterback. We have Kyron Williams and Bucky Irving at running back. Justin Jefferson and Ladd McConkey at wide receiver. Saquon Barkley, Jahmyr Gibbs, Josh Jacobs, and Mark Andrews in our flexes. So we have 5 running backs. We've completely leaned into the running back position. What could go wrong? And then last chance, Alan, if you want to change out Josh Jacobs or if you want to switch out any of these other guys.
Jacobs is my least confident play because you could see it. But again, these guys are hired guns. These are the players that they don't mind saving. They're not saving. They're using them up. And if you feel that Jacobs is going to be, sub 20% owned, sub 25% owned, I think it's a reasonable play. It's not about what's likely to happen. It's what happens if.
Okay. So I realize we just have a huge error here. We do not have a Kansas City Chief in here.
Oh, okay.
So we messed up.
Get rid of Jacobs.
Let's take out Jacobs.
Yeah.
And now we've got to talk about our Kansas City Chief. There's going to be multiple ways to kind of play it with the Chiefs.
Dude, this is Kelsey time. Come on. Don't get crazy.
Yeah.
This is Kelsey time. 3 tight ends.
I will throw this out to you. Xavier Worthy.
Yeah, it's a great play, but when the money's on the table, who the hell is Mahomes going to here, man?
I will say that I'm gonna stand a little bit for Xavier Worthy.
Yeah, he's a great player.
I think he could have a very, very strong playoffs. Yeah. And also I don't know. Kelsey,
it's rookies in the playoff like this. I think we all agree. There's like a 75% chance, 80% chance. This is it for Kelsey.
Yeah, and Kelsey's been so good in the playoffs throughout his career, and he gets the bye week this week. I do think if we weren't so unique already, I think Xavier Worthy would give us like a lot of leverage against the field potential.
I think it's a good pick, Xavier Worthy, but rookies in the playoffs.
We already have. I mean, look, we got Bucky and we got McConkey in there. We already are leaning into the rookies here.
Yeah,
It's a little bit of a theme here.
I
You
know.
want to go Kelsey or do you want to go Xavier Worthy?
I would think Kelsey in the playoffs in his swan song. Like, I mean, why?
Let's go Kelsey.
Yeah,
let's go Kelsey. So
if you want, we could put Kelsey into the tight end, get rid of Ertz, and then add, if there's another commander you like, we could do that.
I don't necessarily love McLaurin in this one.
Okay, I'm with you.
And with the flexes, it doesn't really matter. We're starting Kelsey, we're starting Mandrews, and we have Ertz. Mm-hmm. So we have like 3 sort of like veteran tight ends in here. With Kelsey, we have the bye week, so he'd be obviously next week. But Mandrews and Ertz, I like them both. If you wanted to go with McLaurin, he's had a very, very strong season. But I think it's fine to go Ertz. So
yeah,
let's do our kicker and let's do our defense here. So
how did you figure out that we were missing Kansas City? How did that?
Because I was just looking at the defense options and I saw Kansas City and I'm like, we messed up absolutely big. So big shout out to every Kansas City fan out there. We were not ignoring you. There's just a lot to take in with this one. So we've got, again, Josh Allen, Kyron Williams, Bucky Irving, Justin Jefferson, Ladd McConkey, Saquon Barkley, Jahmyr Gibbs, Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, Zach Ertz. Last chance to get a little bit more unique here. Is there any player that I listed that you're like, I wish we could pivot away from? I will say the one would be Kyron Williams because I keep thinking about Puka Nacua.
Okay, so if you want to do that, but then we would have to change our quarterback too, because I would say James Cook would be our Kyron replacement. Okay.
Well, we don't need that though, because Saquon or Gibbs would just slide into the running back spot.
Okay. So you invited me to this, so you're captain's chair, I'm the co-chair. I love Kyron in this, but I'm going to do an entry after, and I'll put Kyron in mine. If you want to take him out and put Puka in, I have no problem with that because, I mean, it's Puka, man. He's going to have a monster game.
I think I'm going Puka.
I'm with you.
Let us know in the chat on YouTube if you think that I'm messing up our entry by going Puka.
There could be no wrong answer here. They both could eat.
Okay, so I put in Puka Nacua.
Right. And then you're going to put Saquon into the running back slot.
Yeah, let's do that right
now. By the way, if you're listening on the audio podcast, this is a better experience on YouTube. I'm telling you. You need to go on. Yeah, okay.
Okay, so let me put in Puka Nacua. Okay, now we're talking about kicker and defense. Let's get this over with.
And our teams are Houston and Pittsburgh. And who else? Green Bay.
And Green Bay. Okay. You have the option for Green Bay. So, again, kicker-wise, I lean
and Denver. We have Denver, too.
Denver, Pittsburgh, and Green Bay. I lean into Kaimi Fairbairn.
100%.
Let's go with him.
Yeah.
And now the defense is interesting because I still think Denver is the best defense.
Probably. Who's most likely to get a pick six? That's what we need to like. What quarterbacks are we going against? Is Jalen Hurts? So if we pick Green Bay's defense, we're going against Jalen Hurts. If we pick Denver's defense, we're going against Josh Allen.
I mean, we're going against Josh Allen. We're going against Jalen Hurts, or we're going against Lamar Jackson. None of these are appealing in terms of the quarterback matchup.
We're going against MVPs. So let's go against Jalen Hurts. Maybe he's still a little woozy. They forced him back, okay, so early.
Let's go Green Bay. So we'll lock that in. So we're going to ignore Denver and Pittsburgh are our fades. We didn't use anyone from Denver and Pittsburgh. Again, let's read our team one more time. Josh Allen, Saquon Barkley, Bucky Irving, Justin Jefferson, Ladd McConkey, Jahmyr Gibbs, Puka Nacua, Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, Zach Ertz, Kaimi Fairbairn, and the Green Bay defense. A little chalky, but I think we have the correct chalk.
You told me that we were diverse enough that we could go chalk.
I don't know how diverse we are now with I think Kelce. I mean, we're not that unique. We're unique with, so Bucky Irving is going to be one where I don't think there's going to be everybody with universal exposure to him. I think that Baltimore, Andrews will be the third highest exposure. Ertz, but Ertz still will have some people on him. If we were looking to change,
Kyron was the way to go here.
Kyron was the way to go, but
you want to do it? All right.
If you want to do, I can't get away from Puka Nacua. I think he's going to go absolutely nuts.
Well, then you're the reason for the chalk. Then
I'm the reason for the chalk. I'm the reason for the Puka Nacua chalk. I'll say the only other suggestion I would have, if we want to go contrarian, leverage against the field, Jordan Addison has had multiple games where he's outscored Justin Jefferson, and Jordan Addison potentially will get more advantageous coverage, and he could go nuts in that one with that high total.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I just, Justin, if we both think that Minnesota's a one and done, which it sounds like we think that, let's just try to go with the most likely there. If we think
the other way to get unique would be going with Amon-Ra St. Brown, who I think will be lesser exposed than Jahmyr Gibbs.
Let's do that. Could
absolutely have his massive tournament.
Okay, it's Amon-Ra. He could have a 9 for 90 and a touchdown in this game, and we'll be very happy with that.
Okay, so we are getting off of the guy who scored 7 touchdowns in 6 days.
Montgomery's coming back, though. Montgomery will be back for the game. Yeah.
Okay, and let's go with Amon-Ra St. Brown. So we have pivoted our final lineup. This is it, guys.
This is good. This is good. No, this is good. This is how you talk through it. And by the way, like I'm saying, everyone, you can't go on what Gibbs did the last 4 weeks because Montgomery, like I said, he'll be back for the game, supposedly.
Gibbs, number 3 overall in my 2025 top 25. Josh Allen at quarterback, Saquon Barkley at running back, Bucky Irving at running back, Justin Jefferson, Ladd McConkey. Those are our 2 wide receivers. Zach Ertz is our tight end. And then our flexes are Amon-Ra St. Brown, Puka Nacua, Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, and then we have Kaimi Fairbairn and the Green Bay defense locked in. Alan, give your Super Bowl prediction to everyone.
Oh, I already told you. It's going to be Tampa Bay versus LA Chargers. I'm sticking with this, even though it's unlikely. I made a $50 bet, which is going to cash. It's over $10,000. It's unlikely, but it's going to happen.
I love it. And I'm going to go with the Rust Belt Super Bowl. We've been waiting for this one. It's Buffalo, Detroit. They're close enough as cities. And this is like fan bases that are going to be that would make your trip to the Super Bowl so much more fun to have those 2 teams. So absolutely looking forward to it. Make sure you're checking out everything Alan Seslowsky puts out over at RotoWire, one of the best in the industry. Shout out to my guy, Jim Coventry, over there as well. Stick with us here at Press Coverage. We're going to be back next week. We're talking about the offseason. We're talking about the NFL draft class. We're going to talk about the Senior Bowl. You name it. And we'll have to talk about these playoffs a little bit as well. We'll see you soon.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.